My wife had 8 emergency room visits in 3 months. 8. The doctors ran 47 different allergy tests. Every single one came back negative. I'm Marcus Chen, and I'm a software engineer here in Toronto. My wife Sarah is 32, works in digital marketing for a tech startup downtown. We've been married for 4 years, together for 7. She's the kind of person who lights up a room, always laughing, always making everyone around her feel comfortable. Or at least, she used to be. It started in late May. We'd just come back from a weekend trip to Niagara Falls, celebrating our anniversary. Sarah woke up on Monday morning with hives all over her arms. Not just a few bumps. I'm talking angry. Red welts that covered her from wrist to shoulder. She took some Benadryl. Figured maybe it was the hotel sheets or something in the air down there. But it didn't stop. Tuesday, the hives spread to her neck. Wednesday, her face started swelling. By Thursday, I was driving her to Mount Sinai at 2 in the morning because her throat was closing up. The ER doctor gave her epinephrine, ran some basic tests, told us it was probably a severe allergic reaction to something environmental. Avoid any new foods, new products, new detergents, he said. Keep an EpiPen with you at all times. We did everything right. Sarah went through our apartment like she was on a mission, throwing out anything we'd bought in the past month. New laundry detergent? Gone. That fancy body wash I'd picked up at Shoppers? Tossed. We even got rid of the plants on our balcony, just in case. The attacks kept coming. Every 4 or 5 days, like clockwork, Sarah would break out in hives. Sometimes her eyes would swell shut. Twice, we were back in the ER because she couldn't breathe properly. The doctors were baffled. They tested her for everything. Pollen allergies, food allergies, latex, dust mites, pet dander even though we don't have pets, chemical sensitivities, you name it. 47 tests, all negative. Maybe it's stress-induced urticaria, one specialist suggested. Sometimes anxiety can manifest as physical symptoms. Sarah wasn't buying it. Marcus, I know my own body. This isn't stress. Something is causing this. By mid-July, she'd missed so much work that her boss started making comments. Sarah had always been the reliable one. Never sick, never late. Now she was calling in 2 or 3 times a week, looking like she'd been in a fight. The hives would fade after a day or two, but the psychological toll was worse. She was terrified to eat anything, terrified to go outside, terrified to sleep because she didn't know if she'd wake up able to breathe. I felt completely helpless. What kind of husband watches his wife suffer like this and can't do anything about it? Then there was my father-in-law, Richard Morrison. Richard is 63, retired from a career in banking, lives in a big house in Oakville. Sarah's mother, Patricia, died 2 years ago from cancer. It was devastating for both of them. Sarah and her mom were incredibly close. After Patricia passed, Richard became different. He started calling Sarah multiple times a day, showing up at our apartment unannounced, asking her to come stay with him for weekends so he wouldn't be lonely. I get it. Grief does strange things to people. I tried to be understanding, but there was something about the way Richard looked at me that always made me uncomfortable, like I was an intruder, like I'd stolen something that belonged to him. He just misses Mom, Sarah would say whenever I brought it up. He's adjusting. Give him time. In early June, right when Sarah's symptoms were getting really bad, Richard came by with a gift, a bottle of perfume. Not just any perfume. This was a $400 bottle of Chanel No. 5. The real deal. In this beautiful box. I was cleaning out your mother's things, he told Sarah, his eyes getting watery. She never opened this. I bought it for her last Christmas, but she was too sick by then to wear it. I want you to have it. Sarah started crying right there in our living room. She hugged her father, told him how much it meant to her, how she'd feel like she was keeping a piece of her mother close. She started wearing it every single day. I remember thinking it was sweet, sad, but sweet. Sarah would spray it on every morning before work, and I could smell that distinctive Chanel scent on her clothes when she came home. It became part of her routine. Looking back now, I can pinpoint exactly when the attacks got worse. They went from once a week to every 3 or 4 days, and they were more severe, more violent, but we never connected it to the perfume. Why would we? It was a sealed bottle from a legitimate brand. It smelled right. It looked right. On July 20th, a Wednesday, Sarah's colleague from work came over for dinner. Dr. Rachel Kim. She's a dermatologist, has her own practice on Bloor Street, and she and Sarah had become friends over the past year through some professional networking thing. Rachel is sharp. I mean really sharp. The kind of person who notices everything. We were having wine in the living room before dinner when Rachel got up to use the washroom. Our apartment is small, so the bathroom is right off the main hallway, and the door to our bedroom was open. When Rachel came back, she had this weird look on her face. "Sarah," she said slowly, sitting back down on the couch. "That perfume on your dresser, the Chanel. Can I see the bottle?" Sarah laughed. "Why? You want to borrow it? I didn't know you were a Chanel girl. Just humor me for a second." Sarah got up and brought the bottle over. Rachel held it up to the light, turning it slowly in her hands. Her expression changed. I watched her eyebrows knit together, watched her bring the bottle closer to her face. "Where did you get this?" Rachel asked. "My dad gave it to me. It was my mom's." "Why?" Rachel unscrewed the cap and smelled it. Then she held the bottle up next to the window, examining the liquid inside. "Sarah, I own this perfume. I've been wearing Chanel No. 5 for 15 years. This isn't right." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean it isn't right? The color is off? Chanel No. 5 should be clear, maybe slightly golden. This has a weird cloudiness to it. And the smell? There's something underneath the Chanel scent. Something earthy, almost like—" She trailed off, thinking. "Like plants, crushed leaves." Sarah looked at me, then back at Rachel. "I don't understand. Are you saying it's a fake?" "I'm saying I think someone tampered with this bottle." "Sarah, how long have you been using this?" "Since early June. About 6 weeks." Rachel's face went pale. Actually pale. "And when did your allergic reaction start?" The room went completely silent. I could hear the air conditioning unit humming in the window. Could hear cars passing on the street below. Could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. "Early June," Sarah whispered. Rachel stood up. "I need to take this to my lab. Tonight. Sarah, stop using this immediately. Don't touch it. Don't smell it. Don't go near it. Marcus, do you have a plastic bag?" I got up on autopilot, went to the kitchen, came back with a Ziploc bag. Rachel carefully placed the perfume bottle inside and sealed it. "I'm going to run some tests," she said. "I have a friend who does forensic toxicology. If there's something in here that shouldn't be, we'll find it." After Rachel left, Sarah and I just sat there. Neither of us wanted to say out loud what we were both thinking. "It can't be," Sarah finally said. "My dad wouldn't. He couldn't." "Let's just wait for the results," I told her. But my mind was already racing. I couldn't sleep that night. I lay in bed next to Sarah, listening to her breathe, watching the ceiling fan spin in circles. Around 3 in the morning, I got up and went to my laptop. Richard had told Sarah he bought the perfume for Patricia last Christmas. That would have been December 2024. Patricia died in March 2025, so the timeline made sense, right? An unopened gift, saved for his daughter. But something was nagging at me. I logged into my credit card account. Sarah and I have joint finances, but I also have access to some of the statements from before we were married, when I used to help Sarah's parents with their online banking setup. Richard had never been good with computers, so I'd set up his accounts years ago and still had the login information. I know. It's a violation of privacy, but my wife was in the hospital 8 times in 3 months. If there was even a chance that something was wrong, I had to know. I pulled up Richard's credit card statements from December 2024, went through every transaction. There was no charge for Chanel perfume, no charge from Holt Renfrew, no charge from any department store, no charge from any online retailer that would sell luxury perfume. I went back further. November, October, September. Nothing. Then I found it. June 3rd, 2026. A charge for $47.99 to a website called luxuryfragrancereplicas.com. 4 days before Richard showed up at our apartment with the gift. I felt like I was going to throw up. The next morning, I called my sister Emma. She's a forensic scientist with the OPP, works out of the lab in Aurelia. We've always been close, and I knew I could trust her. "Emma, I need your help with something. It's about Sarah." I told her everything. The allergic reactions, The perfume, Rachel's suspicions, what I'd found on Richard's credit card. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Marcus, if what you're suggesting is true, this is attempted assault. Maybe worse. You need to involve the police. I know, but I need proof first. Real proof. Can you help me? Another pause. Rachel Kim, the dermatologist. Is she willing to share her findings? I think so. I'll ask her. Good. Tell her to send me the analysis as soon as she has it. In the meantime, has Sarah touched anything else that Richard has given her recently? I thought about it. He brings groceries sometimes. Fresh vegetables from the farmer's market. Baked goods. Says he has too much food for just himself. Don't eat any of it. And Marcus? Document everything. Every interaction with Richard, every gift, every visit. If this goes where I think it's going, you're going to need a timeline. Rachel called me that afternoon. I was at work, sitting in a meeting about some software deployment, barely paying attention. When I saw her name on my phone, I excused myself and stepped into the hallway. Marcus, you need to sit down for this. I'm standing in a hallway at work. Just tell me. The perfume is contaminated. Heavily. Someone mixed urushiol into the formula. Urushiol? What's that? It's the oil from poison ivy, poison oak, poison sumac. It's what causes the allergic reaction when you touch those plants. And Marcus, this wasn't a trace amount. This was concentrated. Whoever did this extracted the oil and deliberately added it to the perfume. My knees actually buckled. I had to lean against the wall. That's not all, Rachel continued. We also found low levels of formaldehyde. Not enough to be immediately dangerous, but enough to cause chronic irritation and sensitization. Over time, it would make the allergic reactions worse and worse, more severe. Jesus Christ. There's something else you should know. Urushiol is incredibly stable. It can remain active for years. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. This wasn't some accident or contamination during manufacturing. This was deliberate, calculated. How bad could it have gotten? If Sarah kept using it, Rachel was quiet for a moment. The reactions were escalating, the throat swelling, the respiratory distress. If this had continued, there's a very real possibility she could have gone into anaphylactic shock. Fatal anaphylaxis. I couldn't breathe. I literally couldn't get air into my lungs. Marcus, are you still there? Yeah, I'm here. Rachel, thank you. Can you send everything to my sister? She's with the OPP forensics lab. Already done. And Marcus, I'm so sorry. I can't imagine what you're going through right now. After I hung up, I stood in that hallway for a long time. People walked past me, going to meetings, getting coffee, living their normal lives. And all I could think was that Sarah's father, the man who walked her down the aisle at our wedding, the man who gave a toast about how happy he was that she'd found someone who loved her, had been poisoning her. Slowly, methodically, for 2 months. I went home early that day, told my boss I had a family emergency. Sarah was working from home, sitting on the couch with her laptop, looking tired but determined. The hives on her arms had finally started to fade since she'd stopped using the perfume 3 days ago. We need to talk, I said. I told her everything. The credit card statement, the lab results, what Rachel had found. I watched my wife's face go through about 15 different emotions in the span of 2 minutes. Confusion, disbelief, horror, betrayal, rage. He was killing me, she whispered. My own father was killing me. We don't know his intentions for certain. We need to understand why. What reason could there possibly be? Marcus, he looked me in the eye. He watched me get sicker and sicker, and he brought more groceries, more gifts, acted so concerned. How could he do that? I sat down next to her, took her hands. I don't know, but we're going to find out, and we're going to make sure he never gets the chance to hurt you again. The next day, I called a lawyer. Criminal defense attorney named David Okonkwo came highly recommended from a colleague at work. I laid out everything we had, the lab results, the credit card statement, the timeline of Sarah's symptoms. David listened carefully, taking notes. Here's what we're dealing with, he said when I finished. This is assault with a weapon, potentially attempted murder depending on his intent. But proving intent is tricky. A good defense lawyer will argue that he didn't understand the severity of what he was doing, that he was just trying to make her sick enough to need him, not trying to kill her. So what do? We need more evidence. We need him on record admitting what he did and why. Have you considered confronting him? Confronting him? With police present? With recording devices? See if you can get him to admit to it. People often confess when confronted with evidence, especially family members. The emotional component makes them vulnerable. Sarah shook her head. I can't face him. David nodded. I understand. But Mrs. Chen, right now we have circumstantial evidence. The credit card, the lab results, those are strong. But what we don't have is direct proof that your father was the one who contaminated the perfume. He could claim he bought it online, not knowing it was tampered with. He could claim someone else had access to it. We need his confession. What if we set up a situation? I asked. What if I confronted him, with cameras running? That could work. But it has to be in your own home. Recording someone without their knowledge in a private residence is illegal in Ontario without consent. But if it's your own home and you're the one being recorded, it's admissible. We'd need to coordinate with the police first. It took us a week to set everything up. We contacted the Toronto Police Service, spoke with a detective named Jennifer Walsh, who specialized in domestic violence and assault cases. She took our case seriously, thank God. Some of the officers we initially spoke with seemed skeptical, like maybe we were overreacting or misunderstanding things. But Detective Walsh got it immediately. I've seen cases like this before, she told us in her office downtown. Not common, but they happen. Family members who poison slowly over time, usually for financial gain or control. The fact that it started after his wife died fits a pattern. He's trying to regain control over his daughter. We came up with a plan. I would invite Richard over for dinner on a Saturday night. We'd set up cameras in the living room and dining room, small ones, hidden in picture frames and bookshelves. Sarah would stay in the bedroom, listening through a baby monitor we'd repurposed. If things got dangerous, Detective Walsh would be parked outside with 2 other officers, ready to come in. The goal was simple. Get Richard to admit what he'd done. Saturday, August 17th. I remember the date because it's burned into my brain. I spent the morning preparing, cooking Richard's favorite meal, beef Wellington, trying to seem normal, trying not to think about the fact that I was about to confront the man who'd been poisoning my wife. Richard showed up at 6, right on time. He was carrying a bag from some expensive bakery in Oakville. Thought I'd bring dessert, he said, smiling. Those butter tarts you and Sarah love. I looked at the bag and felt sick. Had he done something to those too? Thanks, Richard. Come on in. We made small talk while I finished the dinner prep. He asked about work, asked about Sarah, said he'd noticed she seemed better the last few days. Yeah, the symptoms have really improved, I said carefully. It's the strangest thing. That's wonderful. I've been so worried about her. I bet you have, I thought. We sat down to eat. I'd made sure everything on the table came from sealed packages I'd bought myself that day. Nothing Richard could have tampered with. We went through the motions, talking about nothing, hockey, the weather, politics. Finally, after we'd finished the main course, I stood up. Richard, I need to talk to you about something. About Sarah's illness. His expression didn't change. Of course, what about it? We figured out what was causing her allergic reactions. A flicker of something crossed his face. Concern? Fear? I couldn't tell. That's excellent news. What was it? It was the perfume. The Chanel No. 5 you gave her. Silence. Richard set down his wine glass slowly. The perfume? But that was brand new. Sealed. How could that cause an allergic reaction? Because someone contaminated it. Someone mixed poison ivy oil into the formula, along with formaldehyde. We had it tested by a forensic toxicologist. Richard's face went completely blank. That's impossible. I bought that for Patricia. It was sealed when I gave it to Sarah. No, you didn't buy it for Patricia. I checked your credit card statements. There's no record of you purchasing Chanel perfume last December. But there is a charge from June 3rd of this year to a website called luxuryfragrancereplicas.com, 4 days before you gave it to Sarah. He didn't move, didn't speak, just stared at me. Why did you do it, Richard? Why did you poison your own daughter? I don't know what you're talking about. You're upset. I understand. Sarah's been sick, but you're grasping at straws, trying to blame someone. We have the lab results. We have the credit card statements. We have testimony from medical professionals. This wasn't an accident. This was deliberate. His hands were shaking now. I could see them trembling on the table. "You need to leave," he said quietly. "I think you should go see a therapist, Marcus. This paranoia, these accusations, it's not healthy. I'm not going anywhere. This is my home, and I need you to tell me the truth. Did you contaminate that perfume?" "No, of course not. I would never hurt Sarah. She's my daughter, my only child." "Then where did you get the perfume?" "I told you. It was Patricia's." "Stop lying." My voice came out louder than I intended. "Patricia never had that perfume. I've seen the pictures from Christmas. I've talked to her friends. Stop lying and tell me why you did this." Richard stood up suddenly, his chair scraping against the floor. For a second, I thought he was going to leave, or maybe take a swing at me. But instead, he just stood there, breathing hard, staring at the wall behind my head. "She was supposed to stay," he whispered. "What?" "After Patricia died, Sarah was supposed to stay with me. She was supposed to come back home, take care of me. I'm her father. I raised her. I gave her everything. And what did she do? She chose you. She chose this." He gestured around our small apartment with disgust. This tiny apartment? This mediocre life. She could have lived in comfort. She could have been with family. I felt cold all over. "So you decided to make her sick. I decided to show her that you couldn't take care of her. That you were useless. That she needed to come home where she'd be safe. Where I could protect her. By poisoning her." "It wasn't poison." His voice was getting agitated now. "It was just enough to make her uncomfortable. To make her weak. To make her see that being with you was making her sick. I never wanted to kill her. I just wanted her back. After Patricia died, Sarah was all I had left. Don't you understand that? She's all I have." "So you were willing to send her to the emergency room 8 times. You were willing to watch her throat close up. You were willing to risk her life. It wasn't supposed to get that bad. The reactions were supposed to be mild. I calculated it carefully. I read all the research. You calculated it carefully. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Richard, she could have died. Do you understand that? Your daughter could have died." He finally looked at me, really looked at me, and his eyes were empty. "But she didn't. And now she knows she's not safe with you. Now she knows." The front door opened. Detective Walsh walked in with 2 uniformed officers. "Richard Morrison, you're under arrest for assault with a weapon and reckless endangerment." Richard's face went white. He looked at me, then at the officers, then back at me. "You recorded this." "Every word." Sarah knew. She was listening. "Every word," I repeated. "They read him his rights. Put handcuffs on him right there in our dining room, next to the uneaten beef Wellington. He didn't resist. Didn't say anything else. Just let them lead him out." After they left, Sarah came out of the bedroom. Her face was streaked with tears. I held her while she sobbed. This horrible, broken crying that I'd never heard from her before. "I kept hoping he'd say it was an accident," she said into my shoulder. "I kept hoping there was some explanation. But he meant to do it. He looked you in the eye and admitted he meant to do it." "I know. He's my dad, Marcus. He's my dad and he tried to kill me. He's sick. Grief made him sick. That's not an excuse." "No, it's not." The legal process moved faster than I expected. Richard's lawyer tried to argue for bail, but the Crown opposed it, citing the ongoing danger to Sarah. The judge agreed. Richard was held in custody pending trial. Emma and Rachel both testified at the preliminary hearing about their findings. The evidence was overwhelming. The poison ivy oil, the formaldehyde, the credit card statement, the recorded confession. Richard's lawyer tried to argue diminished capacity due to grief-related depression, but the premeditation was too clear. The purchase of the contaminated perfume, the deliberate gift-giving, the continued visits while watching Sarah get sicker. In October, 3 months after his arrest, Richard accepted a plea deal, 5 years in prison for assault causing bodily harm, plus mandatory psychiatric treatment and a lifetime restraining order against Sarah. Sarah didn't attend the sentencing. She couldn't bear to see him. I went with Detective Walsh, sat in the courtroom, and watched Richard stand before the judge. He looked smaller somehow, older. When the judge asked if he had anything to say, he just shook his head. I thought I'd feel satisfaction, seeing him sentenced, some sense of justice, but I mostly just felt sad. Sad for Sarah, for Patricia, for the family that used to exist before grief and obsession destroyed it. The psychological damage was worse than the physical. Sarah started therapy immediately, working through the trauma of being poisoned by her own father. She had nightmares for months, would wake up panicking, thinking she couldn't breathe, would compulsively check ingredient labels on everything, terrified of being poisoned again. But slowly, gradually, she started to heal. We moved to Vancouver in January 2027. Fresh start, new city, far away from Ontario, and all the memories. Sarah got a new job with a tech company. I transferred within my company. We're rebuilding our lives piece by piece. Last month, Sarah threw out every bottle of perfume she owned. Every single one. We were packing up our Toronto apartment before the move, and she just opened the bathroom cabinet, swept everything into a garbage bag. "I don't need it," she said. "I don't need any of it. We don't talk about Richard." Sarah got one letter from him, sent from prison in November. She burned it without reading it. Maybe someday she'll be ready to hear whatever he wanted to say. But not now. Not yet. The thing that haunts me most isn't the poisoning itself. It's how easily it could have gone unnoticed. If Rachel hadn't come over for dinner that night, if she hadn't examined the bottle, if she hadn't been a dermatologist who knew exactly what Chanel No. 5 should look like, Sarah would have kept using it. The reactions would have kept escalating. Eventually, one of those attacks would have been fatal. We were lucky. So incredibly lucky. So here's what I want everyone listening to understand. If something feels wrong, investigate. If your instincts are screaming that something isn't right, don't ignore them. Sarah knew her body. She knew the reactions weren't just stress or anxiety. She was right. Trust yourself. Trust your intuition. And understand that sometimes the people who are supposed to love and protect you are the ones causing the harm. It's been a year and a half since that Saturday night in August. Sarah is healthy now. Completely healthy. No more hives, no more attacks, no more emergency room visits. She laughs again. She's herself again. Last week, we found out she's pregnant. Our first child, a daughter, according to the ultrasound. We're going to name her Patricia, after Sarah's mom. The good memories. The love that existed before grief twisted everything into something dark. Richard will be eligible for parole in 4 years. Sarah has already stated she'll oppose it. She never wants to see him again. Never wants him to know about his granddaughter. That's her choice, and I support it completely. Sometimes I wonder what Patricia would think if she could see what happened, how her death set off this chain of events that nearly killed her daughter. I think she'd be heartbroken. I think she'd be furious with Richard, but mostly, I think she'd be proud of Sarah. For surviving, for being strong enough to press charges against her own father, for choosing to heal instead of letting the trauma destroy her. Family is complicated. Love is complicated. Grief can turn people into someone you don't recognize. But at the end of the day, you have to protect yourself and the people who depend on you. You have to be willing to see the truth, even when the truth is devastating, especially when the truth is devastating. We're starting over in Vancouver, building a new life, creating new memories that aren't tainted by poison and betrayal. Our daughter will grow up knowing her grandmother Patricia through stories and pictures. She'll never know her grandfather Richard. And that's okay. Sometimes cutting ties is the only way to survive. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away. Sarah is in the other room right now, painting the nursery a soft yellow. She's singing to herself, something she hasn't done in years. She's happy. She's safe. That's all that matters. If you take anything away from our story, let it be this. Pay attention to patterns. Pay attention to timing. Pay attention when someone's health suddenly deteriorates for no apparent reason. Ask questions, demand answers, and never, ever ignore your gut feeling that something is wrong. It might just save your life. Or in our case, it might save the life of the person you love most in the world. Sarah just called out asking if I want tea. I'm going to go join her, going to put my hand on her belly and feel our daughter kick, going to be grateful for every ordinary, peaceful moment we have together. Because we almost lost this. We almost lost everything. But we didn't. We fought. We survived. We're here. And that's worth everything.